Sarah Mitchell hadn't been back to Clover Lane in 11 years. The last time she stood in front of that old Victorian house, she was a broken 24-year-old girl with nothing but a suitcase, a shattered marriage, and a heart too wounded to look back. Now at 35, she had returned, not out of nostalgia, not out of sentiment, but out of necessity. The house had been left to her by her grandmother, and with her city apartment lease ending and her savings nearly gone, it was the only option she had left. She told herself it was just a fresh start, just a place to sleep while she rebuilt her life. Nothing more. The rusted iron gate groaned as she pushed it open, and the sound went straight through her chest like a cold wind. The garden that her grandmother had once filled with roses and lavender was now a wild tangle of weeds and overgrown shrubs. The porch steps sagged under her weight, and the front door, painted a faded blue that used to make her smile as a child, now peeled like old skin. She turned the key slowly, and the door swung open with a long, hollow creak. The smell hit her first, dust, old wood, and something faintly sweet, like dried flowers long forgotten. She stepped inside and let the silence wrap around her. Sheets covered the furniture like ghosts frozen in place. Cobwebs hung from the chandelier. A thin layer of dust coated every surface. And yet somehow the house didn't feel dead. It felt like it was waiting. Sarah set her bag down in the hallway and began moving from room to room, pulling sheets off chairs and tables, opening windows to let the afternoon light flood in. She worked quietly, methodically, the way she did everything these days, keeping herself busy so the grief and the loneliness wouldn't catch up with her. It was in the last room at the end of the upstairs hallway, her grandmother's old sewing room, that everything changed. The door was slightly ajar, and when Sarah pushed it open, she expected to find the usual, a dusty sewing machine, spools of faded thread, perhaps an old quilt folded in a corner. What she found instead made her breath stop completely. The room was immaculate. Unlike every other room in the house, this one held no dust, no cobwebs, no signs of neglect. On the wooden work table in the center sat a small tin box with her name written on it in her grandmother's unmistakable handwriting. Sarah, my darling girl. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Inside were three things: a folded letter, a photograph, and an old iron key. She unfolded the letter first. Her grandmother's words, written 2 years before she passed, flowed across the page in her careful, gentle script. My dear Sarah, I always knew you would come back here when life brought you to your knees. Not because you are weak, but because you are brave enough to start again. This house was not just my home. It was where 3 generations of our family loved, struggled, healed, and began again. I kept this room for you. I cleaned it myself every month, even when my hands could barely hold the cloth, because I always believed you would need it someday. Beneath the floorboard under the left corner of the work table, you will find what I have saved for you over 30 years. Not money, Sarah. Something better. Use it to become who you were always meant to be. Sarah set the letter down and knelt beside the work table, pressing the floorboard in the left corner. It lifted easily. Beneath it was a wooden box, and inside hundreds of handwritten recipes, folk remedies, pressed flowers with medicinal notes, family stories, journals, and her grandmother's lifetime of quiet wisdom, carefully documented in dozens of small notebooks. But tucked beneath all of it was a sealed envelope containing a property document. Her grandmother had quietly paid off the house entirely, leaving it to Sarah free and clear, along with a small account, just enough to restore the place and open the tea and remedy shop her grandmother had always dreamed of but never had the courage to begin. Sarah sat on the floor of that pristine little room as tears fell silently down her face. She hadn't come here to find hope. She had come here simply to survive. But her grandmother, even from beyond, had refused to let her do anything less than truly live. She looked at the photograph last. It was the 2 of them, Sarah at age 7, her grandmother at 60, standing in this very room, both laughing at something long forgotten by the camera, but never by the heart. Sarah pressed the photograph to her chest, closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, felt something she thought she had permanently lost. The quiet, unshakable certainty that everything was going to be all right. She had come to the house to start over, and she had. Just not alone. If this story moved your heart, Please show your love by giving it a thumbs up, sharing it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribing to Kindness Corner Stories, where every story reminds you that kindness, love, and new beginnings are always closer than you think.